One of the deadliest wars ends tonight. Military action, economic upheaval, and lives are affected. Trump has warned Iran that a deal is needed to avoid disaster. He even threatened a whole civilization will die tonight. Hours before a U.S. imposed deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and accept peace terms. No vacuum. As the deadline approaches, U.S. and Israeli troops have increased attacks on Iran's military and key facilities, including Kharg Island, an oil export terminal. Strike changes in the past 24 hours are examined. Multiple Iranian bridges, trains, and key roads have been damaged, reports say. These are real targets. Blocking transportation routes prevents military equipment, fuel, and people from traveling, but it also prevents civilians from receiving essential services. Strikes closed several railway lines and major roads, according to Iranian officials. Civilians died in strikes that went beyond military targets. This is a huge step forward, so the strategy is to weaken Iran's military and pressure its support system. The Strait of Hormuz, a vital shipping route, is the issue. Since this tiny river transports 20% of the world's oil, any problems there affect global prices. That disturbance continues. As uncertainty grows, oil and other benchmarks have risen above $110 per barrel. The International Energy Agency warns that the current situation could cause a bigger energy crisis than in the 1970s or after geopolitical wars. Consumers face higher gas prices, transportation costs, and inflation that may affect groceries and manufacturing. Iran rejected Washington's offers despite pressure. Iranian authorities reportedly want a permanent solution, not a truce or straight reopening. This would end hostilities, not halt them. This difference counts. Iran wants long-term guarantees, while the U.S. wants quick de-escalation. Even with back-channel contact, that disparity makes consensus difficult. Islamabad officials are keeping communication lines open to help the parties. Even though these conversations are private and indirect, no breakthrough appears. The fight has expanded beyond Iran. Spills abound. Police and military clashed outside an Israeli consulate in Turkey. Some died. Israeli bombings in Lebanon worsen a precarious situation. The threat is expanding beyond the battlefield as Saudi Arabia and the UAE shoot down missiles and drones. As shifts complicate things, a small dispute could escalate in the region. Iran is suffering more from strikes. Reports say infrastructure, homes, and cities were affected. It's hard to confirm in real time that emergency workers are helping victims in civilian areas. The Iranian leadership has threatened action if attacks escalate. Retaliations could harm U.S. or regional partners. This possibility is one reason for the deadline. The U.S. is also concerned about the threat's size and nature. Some critics say hitting bridges and power plants violates international law and morality. Some administration members say all options are available. The president's threat grows. Vice President J.D. Vance hopes to resolve the issue through ongoing talks. He warned Iran's intransigence could worsen things. As the economy worsens and the world becomes uncertain, this happens. Markets react to past and future. The Strait of Hormuz could damage global supply chains, energy markets, and the economy if sealed or unstable. Roaring food and fuel prices could devastate fragile systems in developing nations. The deadline is approaching, but things are unclear. Diplomatic efforts may yield a last-minute solution. The crisis may escalate without a resolution. In addition to military activity, this moment is marked by a deadline, open threats, ongoing strikes, and an uncertain global economy. The world is watching the clock. People will make future-changing decisions in hours. These choices could escalate or calm conflict. As the deadline approaches, it becomes clear there are multiple demands and responses. Where each party goes with leverage matters. To reach a deal, Trump's U.S. uses military and economic pressure. Iran, however, refuses threatened conditions, especially without a lasting conflict resolution. That dynamic causes instability. Both sides think time is on their side despite the clock running out. Kharg Island's constant bombardment is key to this standoff. Iran exports most of its oil from this hub. U.S. officials say recent strikes targeted military targets, not oil facilities. This differential is difficult to maintain in high-intensity combat. Minor damage or disruption could hurt exports, tighten global supplies, and raise prices. This site's repeated strikes suggest it's an important strategy, affecting Iran's economy and the global oil market. Iran's focus on transportation infrastructure suggests a coordinated effort to reduce domestic travel. People, equipment, and goods are transported by bridges, trains, and highways. The U.S. and Israel may target these networks to slow Iran's response to strikes. This method has many drawbacks. Large-scale infrastructure damage can hinder food, medical, and other essential service access. It also increases civilian injuries, which can raise tensions and make both sides less willing to negotiate. Iranian public statements are calm but firm. Tehran officials won't reopen the Strait of Hormuz under pressure. Instead, they are linking such action to larger issues like an end to hostilities and guarantees that the crisis won't resume in a few weeks. This choice prioritizes long-term strategy over immediate relief. Iran has taken short-term pressure to improve long-term results, which may influence its current behavior. Weak diplomatic lines remain open. Islamabad officials want to make indirect communication easier between Washington and Tehran to bring them closer. This could lead to a deal. Egypt, Turkey, and other regional players are helping because they want to prevent the situation from worsening. But the two sides remain far apart. U.S. officials say Iran's recommendations aren't good enough, while Iranian delegates prefer long-term solutions. That gap makes it hard to reach a deal quickly, especially with a deadline. The fight is also regionalizing. In the last few hours, events outside Iran have seemed linked to higher tensions. A gunshot near an Israeli diplomatic site in Turkey killed people, showing how violence can spread. Lebanon has seen more airstrikes, suggesting other fronts may become more active. Gulf nations like Saudi Arabia and the UAE intercept missiles and drones. This indicates that the threat level is rising, and many are watching for spillover. All of this makes many believe the conflict is entering a new phase with blurred lines between local, regional, and global effects. Economic effects are already visible. Oil prices have skyrocketed, demonstrating the unpredictability of supply. If shipping through the Strait of Hormuz remains disrupted, the International Energy Agency predicts a worse energy crisis. This could strain the economies of energy importing nations. Transportation, power, and necessities may cost more. Americans are also watching the situation because it could affect them at home. Customer behavior can change immediately when energy prices rise. It can raise gas prices and cross-country shipping costs. However, the administration's approach to the battle, particularly regarding the targets, is being questioned. Some governments and academics debate the morality of attacking power plants and bridges. Some say these steps are part of a larger plan to pressure Iran's leaders and reach a quick deal. Vice President Vance says talks are ongoing and a solution is possible before the deadline. He also said things will likely worsen if Iran doesn't change its mind. Hope for diplomacy and preparation for escalation capture the current situation's ambiguity. It means a peaceful end is possible but not certain. Hours pass with Iran's next move in mind. Will it make a temporary concession to calm things? Will it persist, forcing the U.S. to decide whether to act? That decision makes this moment crucial. Where the dispute goes is more important than one action or response. If no deal is reached, military activities may increase, possibly including targets avoided so far. That could lead Iran to involve other parties and spark a regional conflict. However, even a small deal may open the door to future talks, lowering tensions, and paving the way for a more stable resolution. For now, everything depends on decisions made under pressure with far-reaching consequences. The scenario is changing, the risks are high, and the outcome is unknown. Because of internal pressure on all sides of the conflict, this situation is much harder to handle. Besides foreign policy, Donald Trump's Washington stakes include trustworthiness. This strong wording and public announcement of a deadline make people expect it to be enforced or changed. Walking it back is risky, especially after many warnings and military involvement. However, following through can lead to uncertain results, especially if the answer causes a regional reaction. Iranian leaders are also struggling. Taking a bargain under direct attack could be seen as weakness, especially after weeks of fighting and resistance rhetoric. Meanwhile, the economic and infrastructure burden is harder to ignore. Damaged roads, disrupted services, and increased strain on key sectors suggest the effects are felt beyond military targets. In public speeches, Iranian leaders have stressed national unity and resilience through difficult times. But those messages are serious calculations about how much pressure the system can take before breaking. Infrastructure is crucial to understanding the war's current stage. Attacking bridges, railways, and highways affects a country's daily operations. Highway closures and rail line breakdowns slow supply chains. It gets harder to feed people. Bad medical logistics. Communication and coordination between regions can be hampered. These consequences don't happen all at once like a headline-grabbing explosion. Instead, they accumulate, creating a harder-to-measure but crucial pressure. Meanwhile, military affairs change. The ongoing attacks on Kharg Island demonstrate that some targets remain crucial to the strategy. Officials say oil facilities are not being directly targeted, but military and energy infrastructure are so close that it's hard to tell them apart. Iranian and global markets already reacting to uncertainty would be affected by any major disruption. Longer disruptions are more likely to have long-term economic effects outside the conflict zone. The Strait of Hormuz remains crucial. The ripple effects will continue as long as the canal is unstable or partially closed. Supply chains may be delayed, shipping routes changed, and tanker insurance costs increased. Secondary effects like these may grow into economic issues. They can affect economically linked countries far from the conflict. The International Energy Agency's warning about how bad the issue could get shows that it's not just about supply, but also about uncertainty that makes energy sector planning and investing harder. The regional incidence pattern suggests many people are involved at various levels. The Gulf missile and drone interceptions show a stronger defense. However, events in Turkey and Lebanon suggest localized escalations involving more actors. Even if unplanned, these events create an unstable environment where mistakes can be costly. One political or military mistake can have dire consequences. Diplomatic work in Islamabad and elsewhere is ongoing, but time is tight. Indirect discussions work, but time, trust, and flexibility are limited. Still, ongoing talks indicate neither side has given up on a deal. Their divergent views remain a problem. Iran wants bigger promises to solve the problem, while the U.S. wants tensions reduced immediately. U.S. citizens are also discussing the future. Some lawmakers and analysts worry about expanding strikes to other infrastructure, especially for international law and long-term effects. Others believe more pressure is needed to reach a deal and end a long, possibly worse dispute. Short-term strategy versus long-term stability. Achieving short-term goals without hindering the future is the big debate. Vice President J.D. Vance's negotiations and additional measures comments reflect this ambiguity. One side believes diplomacy works. The other indicates that more steps are being considered if the current ones fail. Negotiation and escalation are common in high-stakes conflict. This makes decision-making difficult because each move may surprise the other side. As the deadline approaches, parties must decide what they are willing to risk and want. Imposing the deadline could escalate U.S. tensions with unknown consequences. Noncompliance may result in more strikes and pressure on a stressed system for Iran. Conflict could spread to other countries and worsen the region. There is de-escalation potential. Even a minor compromise that addresses immediate issues could give parties time to talk. This outcome wouldn't resolve tensions, but it could prevent a larger fight. Both sides must give up something to compromise, and neither has shown a willingness under current conditions. Between escalation and de-escalation, the result is unknown. Choices made in the next few hours will affect more than the conflict. They will affect the next battle and global politics. What could happen next as this reaches a breaking point? The stakes become harder to estimate. Following through is more important than pressure if the deadline passes without an agreement. Donald Trump defined this moment, reducing partial outcomes. The deal is either there or not. Conflict escalates or de-escalates. Analysts fear more attacks on partially damaged infrastructure. Power plants, transportation hubs, and industrial expansion are discussed. A hit would have immediate and widespread effects. A power outage would disrupt hospitals, communications, and services. Factory closures could disrupt vital production. These systems are connected, so their effects would be nationwide. Increased targeting makes Iran more likely to react strongly. Tehran may soon abandon its caution about direct escalation. Iranian officials warn that attacking critical infrastructure could spread the response. Risk increases and could affect U.S. or allied interests in many countries. Crossing that line increases the risk of rapid deterioration in a place with closely linked military assets and vital locations. The Strait of Hormuz matters. The world suffers more if the canal remains closed or becomes a battlefield. Naval activity, commercial shipping risk, and product transport costs may rise. Risk aversion can halt routine operations without full closure. Ship insurance premiums may rise, corporations may change shipment routes, and on-time delivery supply chains may be delayed. What happens next could worsen the economy quickly. Long-term price hikes are more likely when energy markets react quickly and uncertainty persists. Concerningly, the International Energy Agency warned of the issue's size. Long-term instability and current supply affect one of the world's most important energy corridors. Developing import-dependent countries may experience higher inflation, slower growth, and financial stress. Washington faces increasing internal pressure. Escalation would alter the conflict and administration geopolitics. Consider foreign support, legal frameworks, and regional stability. Credibility. Will the U.S. stick to its position or change it as events unfold? Decision making is hard because each option has risks and consequences. Diplomats have little time to find a solution. Islamabad indirect negotiations with regional help are time sensitive. These talks aim to find a compromise that satisfies both sides, even if not. Cases like this can be affected by small changes in wording, order of events, or temporary steps that let both sides claim progress. Both sides must be flexible to agree, but they're stubborn. Multiple areas have environmental instability. Gulf defenses are alerted, and missile and drone attacks continue. Continuous strikes in Lebanon suggest more fronts could open, while tensions elsewhere remain high. These new developments complicate and may affect the conflict's outcome. This situation allows for intentional and unintentional escalation. Events neither party expected but started a chain reaction. The human element matters too. Strategic calculations and geopolitical analysis involve millions of conflict-affected people. Infrastructure issues, rising prices, and safety concerns affect daily life. Humanitarian concerns grow as the situation worsens, especially if basic services are affected or more people move. Though they don't always make the news, these are crucial to understanding the situation. As the deadline approaches, options remain, but error margins decrease. A last-minute deal could calm things. However, if they don't agree, events could escalate the war and have regional and global consequences. Pressure, speed, and uncertainty characterize the situation. Real-time choices aren't flexible. This moment is crucial because of what has happened, what could happen, and how quickly. Remember that this growing crisis is now about tough decisions, not back-and-forth attacks or regional posturing.